So today's guest is someone who has helped shape the memories I have of the School for Creative and Performing Arts, and subsequently my memories of growing up. Bob was the photographer at the school when Ron, Rex, and I attended back in the 80s. And before everyone had cameras with them everywhere, all this time, especially before digital photography, capturing a single image on film could serve as a marker, a gateway to a time and place. And done correctly, you can look at a single picture and it can serve as a time machine. Bob specifically loves photographing people in his work for the Cincinnati Public Schools, and it's clear he loves the students he photographed, and that shines through in the images he captures. We were pleased to have Bob Orr share his story as our guest on this episode of the NattyCast. And what's your origin story, Bob? Like, where were you born? Are you born in Cincinnati?
No, I was born in Chicago, Hammond, Indiana.
Okay.
But we came here, I think I started in Cincinnati in the first grade. Went to Bond Hill School for a year, and then St. Agnes across the street. Was there till started high school, Purcell High School, for 4 years, and then went to UC.
What'd you study at UC?
I started off as a graphic design, industrial design, and then switched after 2 years to education. I saw the future of what I was doing, and I just didn't turn me on, and
Right.
I like kids and all that. So I switched to education, and it was a good move for me.
All right.
Well, the amazing thing is that the summer I decided to switch, I had two really good friends, and I didn't tell them that I was going to switch out of the major.
Were you in? Was it DAP at the
Yeah,
time? Was that,
yeah,
okay, yeah.
It was DAA.
DA. Oh, there was no P.
Yeah, no P back then.
They weren't doing any planning at the time.
No planning. So when I came back to school and I said I'm switching majors, and they both had switched also to education,
Really?
without us discussing it.
Wow.
And so we all went into education. It was really kind of neat. So,
Right.
And what year did you graduate?
From 1960. Oh,
Okay.
1960. Yeah. Yeah,
That,
I was in a class with a guy named Roger Staubach, who nobody ever heard of.
No, really?
Yeah.
It's funny. Tim and I are on this like Bengals chat, and it just came up the other day about Roger Staubach. We were somewhere in there about Roger Staubach being from here. Did he go to Purcell as well? Right? Yeah, that's what
he was one of these guys that he was good at everything. I mean, he was a great student. I mean, a really good guy, and he played every sport. And
It's just terrible.
Just a
isn't it?
really nice human
Right.
being.
You're like,
and-
what am I supposed to do against this?
Yeah,
Right? It's
yeah,
like, none of us have a chance.
Those pickup games.
And I think he did all right for himself.
Yeah, he made a decent name and living for himself.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that chicken franchise paid off for him, didn't it?
Yeah.
And this
He did something other than Church's Chicken?
Yeah, that would be. That's right.
Oh, yeah.
He did a lot of
that's
real
right.
estate.
Oh, that's
Real
right,
estate,
yeah.
And real estate.
Yeah.
Okay, so now, while you were in high school, what neighborhood did you live?
I live in Bond Hill.
So you still lived in Bond Hill and then went to Purcell.
Yeah,
Okay.
the Twin Drive-In Theater. Now, if you're not a Cincinnati, you don't know that, but that was in our front yard.
Oh, my
Lawn Avenue
goodness.
was a dead-end street, and then the Bond Hill Theater was across the street. That's where you'd walk your dog, and you could watch adult movies when you're 10 years old.
At the drive-in
Yeah.
had adult
well,
movies?
not adult movies, but that's
okay, gotcha,
and untreated women and
As close as you were going to get it, 10, right?
Because that's pretty much open viewing. You just kind of pretty.
Yeah.
I remember as driving by there, and you could see the films playing. Yeah. And it was the Twin, and there was dual screens.
Yeah, there's one on the other side too.
Yeah,
It was really kind of neat.
So the screens were back to back.
they
That's
were
how they
right.
got the name Twin.
Exactly.
Yeah, the Twin Drive-In.
Our
cow.
Our drive-in of the day when Ronnie and I were in school we went to the one in Madisonville. There was I guess it's now a big campus.
Was it Sunshine or
Maybe,
Rainbow or I don't know.
So it was right on Madison Road. There was a big drive-in theater.
I know what you're talking about. We pass that a lot.
Yeah, and there's a big. I don't know. They've just built a big.
Complex.
Yeah, complex back there. But that's where we would go. I had my dad had. We had a '65 Oldsmobile convertible.
Yeah.
98 convertible, huge, right? I mean, just a land yacht, like 6 could seat comfortably in the car, and then we'd put like 3 in the trunk because they used to charge you by the car,
Oh, sure.
Carload going in there. So we would just load up thing was dragging on the ground
yeah.
on the way into the driveway.
How you parked that in Mount Adams, I have no idea.
We actually rented the driveway next door because there was nowhere to dock the land yacht up in Mount Adams.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you switched to education out of graphic design, and then where does photography move into the mix? Like how does that kind of?
Well, I was not interested in photography in high school at all. It just never occurred. I was into art, but not photography. But when I started at UC, I met a guy named Jerry Stratton who was a photographer, and I think he was like a senior that also taught. And I just saw what he was doing, and I saw the camera equipment just kind of sparked my interest too. So I just kind of asked him a lot of questions, and he sold me one of his early cameras, which was a Miranda, which doesn't even exist anymore. And I bought that camera for nothing and just started taking pictures. And that.
Do you still have that camera?
No, I wish I did.
Yeah.
But no, so I just started then, and you take pictures of everything you can take, and rusty buildings and paint peeling off and all that kind of cliche stuff, and that's what I did.
And darkroom stuff you were.
Oh yeah, I've had darkrooms until the digital stuff. Yeah, I've had some pretty neat darkrooms. I was always trying to make 20 by 30 prints and all that kind of really difficult stuff. So yeah, I really just fell in love with photography and the camera and what it could do. So.
Right.
And then how does that segue to, or how did you find performing arts, or did performing arts find you? Or
now it was really interesting. I taught for 7 years. I taught at Hoffman Elementary School for 4, and then I taught Taft High School for 3 years. And at Taft, I met Bill Dickinson, who was the vocal music teacher or band. Or something.
My dad taught at Taft for a while too. I don't know if you knew that.
No, I didn't know.
Yeah, my dad was an English teacher at Taft, and then came to SCPA. I don't remember when, but when he first started teaching, he left broadcasting.
Yeah.
Right. He worked in broadcasting here, and then he went back. He decided, interestingly, when things went to videotape, because he was in live television.
Yeah.
And he loved the live, and he was like, this is going to be pretty boring for me now.
Yeah.
And he went back and he got his master's to teach, and his first place he taught was at Taft High School.
Yeah, I taught there from 69 to 72.
It might have been just before he got there, because he was still on TV then. It might have been in the, probably, I think it was maybe 74 or something when he finally started, 74 or 75 when he started teaching over there.
Yeah, I knew him at SCPA, but at Taft I didn't.
And it's funny because I never knew Bill Dickinson was at Taft.
Neither did I.
Yeah, he was there, and they needed somebody to do scenery and stuff, and I'd never done any stage work before, but they said, hey, you want to do this? I said, well, sure.
You studied art?
Yeah. If you know art, you surely should know how you raise and lower scenery. I mean, I knew nothing about that stuff.
Wow. Right. Wait, now I'll step back. What did you teach? What subject did you teach?
I was an art teacher.
You're an art teacher at Taft. Okay.
Yeah, at Hoffman I taught art 4 through 6. Then at Taft I went there and I was basically the art teacher.
Okay.
And it was really neat. The kids were great, and it was small classes, and so Taft did a show called the Taftcapades every year, and it was really the big musical, like a variety show. And Bill asked me if I would do some stage. They didn't have anybody to, not lighting, but it was all the pulling the scenery and that, and build scenery. And I said, yeah. And so I really had to learn everything about working behind a stage, and so I did that. And
they had a pretty nice stage over at Taft.
It was nice. Yeah. So and I did that for the 3 years, and then after I'd gotten a job working at a small production company, Production Media Incorporated, which doesn't exist anymore, but that was the old days of film and all that. And I had met the people there because I had made a couple movies when I taught at Taft High School, 16 millimeter film. I was fortunate enough to have some recording equipment, not sound on film. It was the old double system stuff. Sure. And so I met these people at this lab I was working at. So this guy was going to start his own business, and do I want to be in it? And so I left teaching and worked for this production company for about a year. And I realized, this is not for me. This is just weird. And it's just, you have to be of a certain mindset.
What kind of stuff were they doing there?
They did TV commercials and industrial films for GE and P&G and stuff. So it was fun.
Right.
But it just wasn't for me. And so I got a call from, they wanted to start a media lab at Cincinnati Public Schools in the Ed Center, and would I be interested? And I went down there and I thought, I'm starting from scratch. They didn't have anything. And I said, you want to do this? I said, yeah. So it was
What did that mean? Like, what did it mean?
Well, they wanted I was in the communications department, so PR stuff. So they needed somebody to take pictures for brochures and graphic design, and this is long before video.
Sure.
So it was slideshows and that sort of thing. So I started off with a little table and
for the whole school system.
Yeah,
For Cincinnati Public Schools.
Yeah, for the system.
Gotcha.
It was not like taking senior pictures. It was
Right.
like Montessori education, a brochure, and that's.
Sure.
So I got a
Because that was
chance.
the beginning of the alternative schools then.
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Right.
So that's how I got started in that. They asked me if I'd do that, and I did it, and it was the best decision I ever made. But 6 months after I started the job, Bill Dixon came to me and said, hey, we're starting a new school. I'd love you to be the art teacher there. And I had to really think, okay, now I've got this new job. I like teaching, and I decided to stay in the job I had. But I could have been the first art teacher at SCPA.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
So it was kind of neat.
Yeah.
So, But then what happened is in 1982 or 83, I had been at the Ed Center for a while. I went to SCPA for taking some pictures. I ran into Jack Loiza, who I kind of had known who he was. We got talking. He says, hey, we're doing a West Side Story. It's pretty neat. You want to come and take some pictures? I said, sure. And I was just, after I saw that, I was just blown away. And he saw my pictures and was impressed, and or he liked them. And so
It was clearly my performance as a jet that obviously
Oh, I'm sure.
impacted you, Bob.
I was just going to say, Tim, I'm pretty sure you're in it because I was up on the light tower and I was pretty sure I forgot you were a jet in that.
Yeah.
So you were there during that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
was. I mean, that was an astonishing performance. I wish they had that on tape or
I
something. 'cause
know.
that,
Yeah.
It really
just the
was.
dancing and just everything about it was just unbelievable.
The orchestra, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, everything. Well, that was my first year at SCPA. And,
Oh, was it?
And seeing that show was kind of started leading me in the direction of technical theater.
We had an exchange student at the time from Finland. She was interested in art. And I said, hey, my daughter was Lisa, who was 12, 13 years old at the time. I said, you've got to see this show. And they said, a high school production?
Yeah,
You're gonna
right. I
take
mean, it
some-"
sounds awful.
And I said, just trust me. We went there, and during the overture, Petra said, these are high school students? So it was,
Yeah, it was. It was an amazing place to go to school.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, Ron and Tim and I were all in the class of '86 down there,
Okay.
graduates of there.
so that's how I got started with Jack. And then from then, he's always called me. And then Children's Theater, I've done a lot of stuff for them. So it's been good.
I just have to say you have such an exceptional eye, because a lot of those photos, which I'm sure you were aware of, there was something within like the alumni portal on maybe it was Facebook, or where like a lot of your photos were put forth. You were aware of this, correct?
Oh yeah, actually I contacted them. I had, being the age I am, you start thinking about what am I going to do with all this stuff in my basement. I had
Yeah.
all these archives, and so I called around. Like I started talking to somebody at the Alumni Association. They said that they were planning on really expanding their alumni, blah blah blah. And so I said, well, I'll give you these pictures. You can use them. I said, the only thing, at the time, I think you had to pay to be on the Alumni Association or something. It was really odd. And I said, I would rather not do that. I'd like to just have them available to anybody. When I used to take pictures, Jack never wanted me to show the pictures at a rehearsal that I'd taken, because he didn't want the kids to be
Interesting.
looking at the pictures.
Right.
He wanted them up on stage rehearsing.
Right.
So most of the students never saw most of those pictures.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
if Jack
no.
picked one picture for a pub, that was the one they see. They didn't see 300 other pictures of all the stuff. So I went through and organized them, and I gave them the whole library. I said, just
Yeah.
go with it.
No,
But your
I've seen
eyes,
that collection.
Yeah,
it's exceptional in what the images you captured. One of them comes to mind offhand. I think it's with April Nixon and Chrissy Wright. It's a dance class. But they're just sitting against the mirrored wall.
I know
in the
the
dance
picture.
studio.
It's funny you said that, Tim, and I've probably haven't seen it in years. I know exactly the image you're talking about. It's in my
like
brain.
everything in that shot just kind of encapsulates, a dancer. Because you can tell they're watching other people dancing, and you just see in their eyes remarkable, and especially with what the career that April's gone on to have, Broadway.
So,
and
Tim, I'm flashing up a picture here. So Tim just sent that to me the other day. So that's Tim and Jeff Sams.
Oh my God!
Play it again, Sam. He just dropped that in our feed the other day. He says, "I'm gonna have to ask Bob about it."
Yeah. See, there are so many kids that I would take pictures of that. You just take their picture and you're done with them.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And then you find out later that no, that's Jack LaWise was saying who that girl is there, and it's Carmen Electra.
Yeah,
I said,
right. Yeah.
Carmen Electra.
Tara
Yeah.
Reid.
Yeah,
Tara
that
Patrick.
she's this beautiful 15-year-old girl in a ballet class,
Yeah.
and you look at her and think, oh my God. So that's been interesting because you don't know them usually when you're taking their picture. So
Right.
Yeah. So Tim is working in this business forever. He's a voiceover artist, and he's an actor, and
I'll be darned.
you've never had a real job. I think we covered this, Tim.
Yeah.
You never had actually real work, did you? Except for
In the early days, survival jobs here and there, but no, been making my living at it the past 20 plus years.
Well, that picture that you just showed me, that was shot in my studio. We built a house, and I had the basement built with a 10-foot ceiling. So you could do some stuff with lighting, which you can't in a normal basement. So Jack would always bring, if he had like a publicity shot that he needed, he would bring kids out there, and
And that's Jeff Sams is in that picture as well, who's also spent his entire career as a working actor.
Yeah. Now, Jeff Sams, I know that name because either Jack or somebody has mentioned it, but so many of these, I just I took your picture and I probably saw, a bunch of stuff. But
Clearly, his memorable performance as a Jet, we've covered this already. It wasn't that story.
his dancing was
That's
amazing.
what started your whole career. I mean, hey, Tim, because when you're a Jet all the way, right?
That's right. From your first cigarette to your last dying day.
Wow. Yeah.
Did that really just happen?
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's Nate. Yeah. So
Wow.
there you go.
Yeah, you've taken pictures of just people who are doing so much stuff, and most of them, a lot of them were still in contact. Well, April Nixon's, Broadway performer.
Oh, yeah.
Cats for a number of years. She's doing a lot of cabaret work.
Yep.
I think she toured with 9 to 5 and, Ron Bomer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
From the Book of
I have to
Mormon.
ask Jack because I don't remember taking. I think he was too early.
Ron probably was.
Ron was
maybe
probably a year or
and
two too
Alton,
early,
maybe Alton White. Also, he might have been a two.
No, I have a picture of Alton not in that book, but on the thumb drive, in a class, or he's singing as a.
Okay.
Because I wouldn't have recognized him, but Jack said that's Alton White.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah. I mean, Alton's had just a huge
career. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Mufasa on Broadway.
Yeah.
And, Lion King for whatever that record was.
4,200, 4,256, something like that.
4256. Yeah, that's the number of performances he's done as in that same role as in the Lion King as the.
It's also the same
king.
number of hits that Pete Rose has.
There you go. I mean, what? The Cincinnati
Fact check
connections.
that.
It's Natty Cast, right?
Yeah,
The
fact
Cincinnati
check that
connections.
one out.
Please.
Wow.
And well, speaking of that, are you a sports fan, Bob? Are you a Cincinnati sports fan or a sports fan in general?
I follow the Bengals more than the Reds. In the 70s, of course, everybody followed the Reds and the all that kind of stuff, and I've photographed a number of players and things for different.
That's what I was wondering. Did you, outside of the performing arts school, obviously, and other schools, did you venture out to other institutions or outside?
Well, I did freelance. Besides working for Cincinnati Public Schools, I did some freelance work. I did a lot of hospital stuff. I worked for Children's Theater and Children's Hospital for 7 or 8 or 9 years,
right.
And Christ Hospital had a publication called Serving, which highlighted successful patients, and I did that I did the photography and the design for 8 or 9 years of that.
Right.
And then I did some other freelance for companies like Syncom and G, just smaller jobs.
Right.
Because I did work full time. So the hospital stuff, I could do a lot of work actually before I started at CPS because all the surgeries and stuff go on like at 6 and 7 in the morning. So I could go there, shoot something, and then go to work. And so, yeah, I did a work for Children's and Christ for years and years, and it was a perfect job because they allowed me to basically do what they trusted me to do my thing. And you can't mess up if you're taking pictures of children in a hospital with nurses. I mean, It's like dance. How can you screw up dance pictures?
There's
Add a puppy in,
Yeah.
and we'll have to figure out a way to show it, but it's a self-published book here called Cincinnati Kids, Tim, that
wow.
that Bob brought in, and it's just some amazing, just pictures of children.
Yeah.
It's just a great book.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have to do a companion to this episode that includes just pictures with this conversation. And but like I said, we did that. We did a retrospective for the 50th anniversary for SCPA was this past year, and the guy that you were talking to at the Alumni Association, we were
Joshua?
not Joshua Trotter. He was one, and then Ken Gibson was the other one of the founding board members.
Yeah.
We were talking, and he, just kind of wanted some type of promo video with a lot of the pictures. I'm going, man, I don't know if I can come up with the pictures. And he said, well, Bob Orr generously donated his entire collection to the Alumni Association. And it kind of floored me when he told me that. So I had access to it, and it made it easy. It took me 10 minutes. There's just so many pictures. It's like, I really don't have to go through and vet anything.
You went from I don't know if I have any content to do this to
having all the content. Yeah. And like I said, I could just drag and drop because everything in that collection was that good.
Oh, thank you.
And that's no exaggeration.
I wanted to go back. You said it, and it's interesting. You said that like Jack would curate and just say, okay, that picture, and those are the ones, obviously, that went on the posters or on maybe the promotional thing. But right before this day and age now, where we can see everything, digital photography and Facebook or whatever, all these pictures are up. I mean, back then it was such a, such special moments that were captured. Prior to everything being captured, right? They were just little, and Tim brought up an image, and that picture of him and Jeff had played against Sam, and I think about it because maybe especially as growing up, images had such power, that they were captured, they were frozen in time, and as I've seen them over the years. Where somebody will pop up or have one, or maybe even pulled one out of the yearbook. Some of your stuff, I think, made it into the yearbook as well. Some of those pictures occasionally would wander into there, and it just immediately just brings it back. You're just there. It was fascinating that you looked at that picture and you knew immediately it was in your studio.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah.
But that picture was taken, what, Tim? You think 83, 84, 85, maybe?
Yeah, it might have been 85.
I'm still blown away by the fact that this is the star of one of my photographs. And you don't look any different. I don't look any different either.
You're right. You're so right, though, Rex. There was. My wife and I are here in Brooklyn, New York, Bob, and Paul McCartney has got an exhibit at the Brooklyn Museum of photographs he took when the Beatles landed with his camera. And, to your point about, you point and click, like you're capturing, it wasn't, snap, 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 oh, erase, erase, erase. It was, these point, shoot, snap it, capture it. There's a beauty in that.
Yeah.
And
well, that's what I jumped at when I started thinking about photography and what this guy was doing. I thought, God, that is so amazing that you are capturing these. And I was into art, so I did drawing and painting and that. But to see what you could do with this magic camera and film and all that sort of thing. So yeah, I just immediately fell in love with it.
And your thoughts on digital photography now?
Well, I think at the early stages, like all purists, think it'll never outdo film. Well, whether it's better or not is not the point. When you're taking pictures for a living and people are buying your work, they want a digital image. They don't want film. They don't want to print. Yeah. So that you're forced into going digital, and it's just, and to be able to take a picture and then take it into Photoshop and improve it, which you can't do. You can do it in a darkroom, but it's just so different. So, to say digital is terrible, it doesn't matter. It is what it is.
Right.
So,
Right.
And then with film, the old days of taking film and cutting it and gluing it together, and the fact that you do this stuff on a computer, and you could use a free program like iMovie that fourth graders can use. It's just phenomenal. So,
Yeah. Well, and I suppose it's like any of this. I mean, us sitting here and able to do this with Matthew sitting in Hermosa Beach in California,
Yeah.
Tim in Brooklyn,
Yeah.
us sitting here, capturing this stuff. This will all get uploaded to the cloud and edited around, and
it's just amazing.
It's a similar
Yeah.
a similar idea, and I suppose I'm cognizant of the fact that there's overload of content with everybody having a camera all the time. You said, "Oh, I wonder anybody video." I mean, we lost so much that
sure.
we didn't capture at all. Certainly on video. But I am still cognizant of the fact that when you see like professional images taken with thought and care, which these all were. I mean, you're capturing. You're thinking about it from an artistic point of view. You still can notice the difference, and obviously the equipment has gotten much better too, where you can do that.
I'm just curious. Are you still shooting now? Is it just here and there, or what's new or going on currently with?
Well, I think the biggest thing for me has been. Well, first of all, when we moved back, we moved to Florida 12 years ago.
Oh,
My daughter and her grandkids moved down there, so we followed them down because that was going to be their forever house. So we moved and had a lovely house near them, and so for 3 years we lived in Florida, and I did all kinds of. There's a lagoon down there that they're trying to save. It's got a lot of pollution in that. So we both volunteered for this marine resources.
What part of Florida?
We were in Palm Bay, Florida, which is south of Melbourne.
Okay.
Which is south of Orlando. So
Right,
I mean, it's down there. So my wife is a marine biology teacher and science teacher, and so we both got involved in this organization. So for them, I was doing all kinds of, they needed a 4-minute video to explain this, or a 6-minute video. So I mean, I was able to go out and just shoot the stuff and deliver it.
Right.
Oh, that's great.
And that was for a couple of years the highlight of my life. I mean, that was just so perfect to have, to be able to volunteer and do something valuable and all that, and using all my skills, and so you don't forget stuff.
And doing it, and now you're shooting wildlife. I mean, now you're out in nature, right?
Yeah.
Shooting, which
So-
is different than shooting urban scenes or children, or right?
Yeah. So we did that, and then we moved back to Cincinnati, and fortunately we had 2 grandkids. I've got grandkid 19 and 18 years old. They're both at FSU right now. And
Congratulations.
So I photographed them doing everything. The one's in theater and the other one is in sports. So I do that kind of stuff. And but I also do, like when Nathan had his high school graduation party, I put together like an 8-minute video of and I've been photographing him since he was a baby, so I had this pretty elaborate show, and I had to create some music for it, so I had to learn GarageBand.
That's awesome.
Well, I heard this Pomp and Circumstances played by kazoo, and it was perfect. I wanted it to start with this serious graduation, and the kazoo's playing.
Yeah.
And the piece of music I used was a copyrighted piece that I just found.
Right.
Well, if you're going to put it on Facebook or something, you can't do that. So then I had to create that. So I bought a kazoo for $3, and I got GarageBand, and I made a 16-track kazoo band.
That's awesome.
And that's kind of something,
kazoo
and I
band.
love to do. I mean, learning something new, is so. So I do that kind of stuff, and then if somebody needs something shot, I wish I could do more. I mean, I wish I would get calls every day for, hey, we're doing something here. Could you take some pictures?
Now, are you back here now, or are you still?
Oh yeah, we live here.
You live back here now. Okay.
We moved back. Yeah, we moved back because after 11 years, we realized my daughter had moved back.
Right.
Because his job changed. So we were down there for.
And the kids are in college now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we were there by ourselves, and when you're somewhat elderly, not old, but elderly, and you realize that if something happened, my daughter's up here in Cincinnati, and and so we thought we really should move back. So we moved back, and it's been like 3 years now.
Now, there's something really interesting. You were here before, 3 or 4, however long ago it was. And I'll never forget this. You walked in the door, and there was a group of 6 or 7 that just kind of came to see the space, came to see the studio. And you were one of 2 people. The first thing you commented on was the old 16 millimeter film camera. But just kind of, hearing your, just kind of during this conversation, I just keep thinking to that. Well, it's right there. I mean, I can see it now, but everyone looks at all of the high-end technology.
Yeah.
Everyone looks at the 4K cameras, these RoboCams, all that stuff. But there's been 2 people, and Dave Stahl was the other one that noticed the old 16 millimeter camera sitting there. But yeah.
When I worked for Production Media Incorporated, that was before video. So, and they had all this 16 millimeter stuff, and he had a Nagra. He had an Eclair, which is this beautiful camera, and you just look at this thing, and it's like a work of art, and the gears and all that stuff. And anytime you look at a piece of equipment like that, I would love to have that just sitting in some place like a sculpture in my house.
Yeah.
And I owned my own Nagra for a while. I'd bought it used and all that. But I sold it because I really realized I wasn't using it and all that. And I really wish I still had it because that was just a piece of art, the mechanics of that thing and how it worked. So
and that's why the door's open on that with the film threaded.
Yeah, exactly.
So you can actually see inside it. And then just even that lens on that ingenue lens right there, it's just
Bob,
it's fascinating.
Is there any chance that you took any stills with Tom Robertson and multimedia, any of the young people specials that were filmed in the late 80s?
No, probably not.
Do you remember those that went on? Okay, so there was up at Channel 5, they had based up there, and it was Tom Robertson was the producer. A guy named Ilya Gopian was the cameraman up there.
I know the name of Ilya.
And they used to film these, but they were national, but they were done here. Young people, like after school specials, ABC had after school specials. Well, they shot the ones, I guess, that were on NBC or syndicated here in Cincinnati. Tim and I were famously, I was in a couple of them. I mean, Tim and I were in one with Todd Loiseau. But we were just curious about that because there were a lot of them. I mean, they did.
Yeah.
Probably 40 of them or something, maybe even more. I don't know the quantity, but they were all shot here in town. A lot of SCPA students over the years when they did it.
No, I didn't do that.
Yeah, it would have been fun because we previously, I don't know if you know J.K. Smith, but J.K. was a guest here, and he worked at Channel 5 with my dad. He started when my dad did Mr. Hop down there with Jack Weiser, right? Yeah. So he started as a floor setup guy, like at Channel 5 when my dad was down there. And still to this day, he's a cameraman down for the Reds.
Really?
Yeah, he still goes to work and shoots the Reds games. But we were hustling him to see if we could get up into the archives up there at because much like you, especially that stuff that was shot on film, because that was filmed. Maybe survived just to get a hold of some of that stuff because it gets lost to time, right?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
It gets lost.
Well, that was my big fear about my collection. I've got all this stuff and binders of prints and, because that was the way that you would show your work. You didn't have a laptop and so I would put they did the show Cats a couple of years. That was one of the final things I did for them. Spectacular show. I've got these gorgeous pictures. So I made an 8x10 album where you can go through and just see this stuff. And I thought, what am I going? My daughter's not going to want to keep this, and that's why I really linked up with SCPA, and I'm thrilled with that.
Have you thought about going down and just shooting the construction process down at the Emory?
Yeah, I took some pictures while we were making the tour, but yeah, you need some specialized stuff because low lighting stuff and that. But yeah, I told him I'd like to come back, and they said come back anytime. So
you probably should do. I mean, you said you're looking to do some other stuff.
Yeah,
it would be a really neat thing to kind of capture and watch it come up. Versus I'm sure there's gonna be plenty of videos or whatever, but to do it in photographs.
But see, I would be more interested in showing the workers doing the work.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
See, I like the people aspect more than the physical aspect. I mean,
sure.
So if you could, when we started our tour last couple of weeks ago, it was at the end of the day, so the workers were leaving the room and coming out were these 6 guys. And this one guy came out and he was 6'7". He had unbelievable dreads, a bandana, jewelry. I mean, he was wearing his orange safety vest,
Right.
but he just was spectacular.
Right.
And I saw this guy, and I thought, oh my God, I would just love to stop him
Where's
and
my
say,
camera?
I got to
Yeah.
take your picture, or can I come back? Because I would just love to. I mean, he was just such a striking-looking guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if I went back, I would ask him, could I just walk around and just shoot the workers doing their thing?
I'm
So,
sure they will.
Yeah.
will
Yeah.
Let you do that. It would.
So-
But that's what I mean. As far as the construction process, there's going to be plenty of documentation.
Sure, yeah.
That's the kind of stuff that gets lost.
Yeah, yeah.
And to me, it's just so memorable.
Yeah.
Did you digitize the photograph collection?
Yeah,
Or you,
yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow. Yeah.
yeah.
Now, the SCPA stuff I've seen, but so with the SCPA stuff and some of the all of the other work you've done, how would people be able to see it, or is that available for general
Right
public
now,
to see?
no. Somebody told me I should check with the Cincinnati Historical Society that they would take it, but they want more documentation, and I don't have any. I mean, I just know that this is a kid with another kid with a hat on that was shot in the studio, and this guy was a talented actor from West Side Story. So, but I don't know names, and some of the dates are so. I'm not sure how welcoming they would be to get just these big piles of all these binders without more information.
Right, understand.
Is that stuff digitized as well, though?
Some of that is not.
Some
I
of
mean,
it's not, yeah.
all the stuff that, of course, to go on the SCPA alumni page had to be digitized,
Right.
and that was mostly. Here's the other thing that just kills me. When I retired from Cincinnati Public Schools, all my photographs were in all binders. I had a binder of negatives and contact sheets. This is the old days. And they actually gave me a room in the basement of the Ed Center, not the new one, but the old one downtown. And so there was a room that I had dug up shelving and all that. So I had all these binders every year, 1972, 73. And I was getting so many requests for SCPA stuff that I actually went through and took all the SCPA stuff out of these and made their own library of FCPA, so I didn't have to go through all these binders. So I had SCPA contact sheets and proof sheets, and they were there for years. And so something came up that I needed some pictures, and I started inquiring, and I found out that all the stuff had been taken to a warehouse somewhere in Kentucky. And I said, and I was upset because people knew that I was still around.
Yeah, right.
That nobody called
They
to say,
called
hey,
me,
Bob,
right.
we're being forced to move this stuff. What should we do? Because I would have said, well, why don't you just call SCPA, or why don't you?
Yeah.
So to make a long story short, all this stuff is sitting in some warehouse somewhere in Kentucky. My guess is that's their way of making it disappear, that legally they have to keep it for archival purposes. They can't throw it away because it's historic, but they don't want it, so they just put it in a warehouse. Because I called the warehouse and said, blah, 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 and they said, well, you'd have to know the date, the time, the serial numbers, and all that kind of stuff so we could even find it.
They won't even let you. They won't let you go in. And
I get the impression there's a gazillion piles of things in here, so it's gone. So
I have
all
that
the
picture of the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark where they're
Yeah.
right where they're rolling the ark down.
or Citizen Kane.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Right.
So most of the pictures are gone. Now I have the pictures that are hanging at the Ed Center. The new Ed Center has about 50 of my pictures hanging on the walls. Those negatives I kept. Those I have in a binder, but everything else is gone.
Wow,
Ah.
So
that's heartbreaking.
so I had to take prints and scan them, or because without the negatives you're
Yeah.
screwed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, yeah, let's definitely keep in touch, and at some point, with the through the NattyCast website or through the TCP website, we can maybe post the link and get some of that stuff up. So
That'd be great.
so public can see
That would be
some of
great.
this amazing work. Everything I've seen is incredible. I know I keep saying that, but it just really is.
Yeah, this book here that's in front of us, Tim, it's called Cincinnati Kids, and it says a collection of photographs of Cincinnati public school children, 1972 through 1998. I mean, that's just a hell of a
Fantastic.
retrospective. And it's
Janet
yeah.
Walsh was a writer for the Enquirer that eventually worked for CPS, and she worked with me, and she wrote the little in-between things about kids, and it's just spectacular. So the whole thing is just really kind of I wish I could have had more copies and
Right.
given them away or something, but
I'll
Well,
definitely have to check that out.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, it's just amazing stuff.
Well,
And
thanks.
yeah, we just want to thank you for coming down and,
Oh.
and sharing this with us. And I agree with Ron. I mean, let's find a way to make sure that this stuff gets up on a website at least so people can see it and look at it, because I can guarantee you it's not just the three of us that are interested in seeing this and looking at these images. They mean a lot to
yeah.
people.
The same
Yeah.
images that SCPA has for their alumni, I'd love to put them out so more people could see them.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Right.
We
So I
definitely,
had a web page at one time, and I was kind of at the end of my freelance career, but I just thought it was kind of neat to have one. But after a while, when you think you're paying out, so much money a month, and is anybody really looking at it? So
Right.
I kind of gave it up because I would love to have the stuff available, just because so many of these students never saw these pictures,
Right.
yeah.
and that's the sad part.
Well, it was interesting. Tim sent me that picture from Play It Again, Sam, that we were just looking at, and I hadn't seen that one. Or at least I didn't remember that one.
That's
And
not the one they use, by the way, for the poster.
Okay, so that's why I never saw it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
exactly.
how that you end up getting a copy of it, obviously, because you were at the shoot or whatever. But I never saw it. I hadn't seen that because I remember them, right? I mean, he talked about that image of them sitting on front of the. You remember?
Mirror
It's-
dance studio, yeah.
We're talking about. I'm 56 years old,
Yeah,
right? I mean, I was a teenager, and I remember these images. They're in they're locked in my head. I mean, instantly back in that room, I can see it. I know the
Nate.
people. When I was flipping through this, there's a picture of Kara Riemann, and there's a line of them, and you probably recognize the photo. I did recognize the picture of them in one of the dance halls, Tim, and I was like, well, that's our era, as I was just flipping
Yeah.
through there. So anyway.
Well, there's a picture called what I call the audition, and they're standing dancers against a blackboard, waiting to be called or something like that.
Right.
And that picture, we used to, if people wanted to buy prints that were on the wall, we would sell them for no charge. And yeah, that picture right there.
That picture, yeah. So it's,
That has been, that's the most popular picture I think I've ever shot at SCPA. And
Wow.
even my brother-in-law, who's not an art guy, but he saw that picture and he says, I've got to have that. So
Yeah.
there's just something about their expressions.
Ron has
Yeah.
a group that comes in here, and I don't know if they're going to do another one. We had those young people from Ish.
Yes,
in here
correct. Yeah.
Doing
The,
basically learning to do a podcast in here. It's one of the. You can explain better.
Oh yeah. Ish had a group called Teen Think Tank.
You have to tell them
I
who
think
Ish is.
you showed us a bit of one.
Right.
Yeah.
And they converted, or not converted, they started coming in and working to do Teen Think Talk. Yeah, just a group of these diverse young people, all teenagers, different schools, different cultural backgrounds, different religious backgrounds.
It just might be interesting.
And,
I mean, if I wouldn't be in the way, I would love to come here.
That's what I was just getting
Right.
at. I mean,
Yeah.
that would be. It sounds like, since you said I'm interested in doing it, it just sounds like right in your alley.
People are my number one thing.
Yeah.
that I-
And
Yeah.
young people.
Yeah.
Kind of, as you look at the subcategories and diversity. I mean, you've captured all of this
Yeah.
over the years, and I mean, you kind of came into CPS at a time, like I said, where the alternative schools came, and I mean, it was a unique thing here in
Yeah, it
Cincinnati,
was.
right? I mean,
Sweet spot.
It really was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My parents were actively involved in getting that started here, and all of the alternative programs that happened. And you can see it in these images. I mean, you're talking about you're looking at images from the 70s there, where you have, complete integration.
Yeah. Yeah.
And which didn't exist. I mean, we grew up in a strange bubble of time, where we didn't understand that the world outside was different than the world that the three of us grew up in.
Except that in the earliest stages of me taking pictures at the Ed Center, we would literally bring 3 little black children from so-and-so school to a school that had no black children,
Right.
to sit them at the table in the library to make it look like it was integrated.
Right.
And it was, I mean, it's hard to imagine that. Or you'd take 3 white kids to Winton
Sure.
Place School,
Yeah.
so you would have some fake integration pictures. And then very quickly it changed when magnet schools came around.
And that was that was the key to that, was that was to solve the.
Are you shocked?
Well, no, I mean, I'm not. That was the whole point.
Not
was that all of
shocked,
these
but
schools
surprised, yeah,
were,
yeah.
even if it wasn't by law anymore,
Yeah.
it was just by
Right.
de facto. The reality of it was that these schools were segregated. If you went to a neighborhood school and you grew up in a neighborhood that was white or black, you ended up with school, it was,
Yeah.
90%
Yeah.
of one or the other. And it wasn't until these magnet schools came out, which was a direct result
Yeah.
of, kind of the concept of integration and Cincinnati's take on
Well, the
it.
lawsuit forced their
It forced
hand,
it,
yeah.
but different places went different routes, for forced busing and all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. But this version here,
It was
which
perfect.
I thought was just fantastic, creating these schools.
Yeah, yeah.
I still remember to this day, Rex, your dad giving that speech our senior year in the black box and just letting us know that what we experienced is not the reality of the outside. And I'm so thankful for that reality because that was such an amazing reality.
It's funny, and even growing up with him, and I do remember him giving that to us. And we used to kind of brush it off a little bit. I mean, even you probably as well, Ronnie. You would just kind of brush it off a little bit and go, we realize that's the world you grew up in, but
Right.
that's not our world today.
Yeah.
And then immediately you get out and you get into college and you go, 1986 is different
Yeah.
than what we grew
Yeah,
up.
right. Well, it was a long time before I realized there was a federal mandate that that required that here in Cincinnati.
Yeah.
But you're right. It was a completely different world. I'll never forget, and here's something you can identify with. I'll never forget the first time I worked on a cruise ship. What was I, 19, 20?
Probably, yeah.
Something like that, 19, 20 years old. And no one knew what to do. No one knew how to, because I wasn't, a cabin steward or I wasn't, carrying drinks.
Yeah, because you go out on ships which were heavily integrated, but
Right.
also very class-based.
Yeah.
Right.
And we all, Ron and I both worked on, you knew George Smith, obviously.
Yeah.
And then we worked at Smith Hall. He taught us. We ran sound down at the Performing Arts School, and he taught us there and got us both started kind of going out on cruise ships. And we all both spent, I met my wife actually on a cruise ship, that we did for George. But so, I mean, well, we all had to face it in our own way when we went out that what they told us was true. That
Right,
it
yeah,
was different.
yeah.
But we look at the world, I'm so thankful.
Yeah.
We look at the world differently.
Yep.
Our interactions with people in the world around us is done through some other lens that you just wish other people grew up with.
I was so hoping you said lens. It's so apropos. It's so apropos.
It's true. It's right. I did it accidentally, but that's right. It's true though, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you're right. That's the correct way to look at it. That's the lens that we see, and that's why these images mean a lot to us, right? Because that lens captured what we were seeing and what we were living at a time when, and I suppose even today, still sadly, but certainly back then, that other people weren't.
Well, in 1960, my high school senior year, every year they would go to Coney Island for senior day. And so on so-and-so date, all of Purcell High School's seniors went to Kings Island, but 3 students couldn't go. Larry Kinley, who was a singer at the time, and 2 other black students were not allowed at Coney Island. And I told my daughter that, and she just couldn't relate to that. Now, of course, she was from a different era,
Right.
and then a couple of years later, they opened Kings Island, and that all changed. But my senior year, 3 students were not allowed to go to the senior day because they're black, and that's hard for a lot of people to understand. Now, I mean, we get political about what's happening now, but the fact is that it was really a challenge. And then you go to SCPA and you see My Fair Lady with a black and a white lead, and you think, my God.
Colorblind casting is
Yeah.
what they called it, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Tim and I had some, what I would think today, probably problematic relationships with doing A Raisin in the Sun, but we won't get into that. Both Tim
That's
and
for
I.
another episode.
That's for another episode.
Well, I remember there was a discussion about the Whiz.
Well,
Should white kids be in the Whiz?
Right.
Yeah.
And I
Right.
think,
well, yeah, it goes both ways,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
It goes
yeah.
both ways. Well, anyway, I think we have covered it, but I mean, it's great to have you here,
well, thank you very much.
and thanks for coming and sharing your story with us, and we will definitely work on getting these images out there.
Okay, anything I can do.
And we'll invite you back
Phenomenal.
when we do.
Okay.
Yes.
Good.
Thanks, Bob.
It was fun. Nice to see you again.
You too.
The NattyCast is proudly brought to you by Pago Lago Productions. The show is hosted by Tim Barker, Rex Stull, and Ron Thomas. Produced and edited by Matthew Lake and associate produced by Ethan Spanja. Special thanks to Sadie Kern at Pop Gun Flow for the graphics and to Brando Triantafilu for the original theme song. Feel free to follow us at _NattyCast on Instagram or head to our website, thenattycast.com. You can get this show wherever you get your podcasts, and we'll see you next time.